A freedman stands on the cold stone of a courtyard in 1st century Corinth. The sun is barely up. The air smells of olive wood smoke. The New Testament talks about grace. It is simply a theological term for divine niceness. Most people read the word grace and think, and you cannot brag about your standing in the community. And that is exactly what terrified the religious elite of the 1st century. But the terror of an unearned gift did not die in the ancient world, because 2,000 years later, we are still trying to rebuild the exact same transactional cage that Paul spent his entire life trying to tear down. You wake up in the dark, the sharp digital hum of the alarm cutting through the silence, and the very first thing you feel is a heavy tightness in your chest. It is the invisible weight of the ledger. You spend your entire week operating on a strict economy of merit. You bring your spiritual baskets of figs to the morning altar. You read the assigned chapters. You volunteer the exhausting hours. You drop the carefully folded bills into the brass offering plate, and you hope you have accumulated enough Charis to keep the heavenly patron satisfied. You perform with a rigid, tired smile in the church lobby, terrified that if anyone sees your actual brokenness, the favor will be immediately withdrawn. When a sudden disaster shatters your routine, a terrifying medical diagnosis in a sterile room, a sudden layoff, a relational fracture, your very first instinct is to check your spiritual bank account. Of a polite pardon, a second chance, a benevolent smile from a distant deity who decides not to punish you today. You sit on the cold vinyl chair, staring at the fluorescent lights, reflecting off the linoleum floor, and you frantically ask yourself what you did to lose the patron's favor. You run through the mental tally of your recent failures. You assume the pain is a penalty for a missed payment. You are treating the creator of the universe exactly like a 1st century Roman politician. This exhaustion is not a sign of a tender conscience. It is the symptom of a transactional theology. We are completely terrified of a gift with no strings attached. We would rather carry the bone deep, crushing fatigue of trying to earn our standing, because at least a transaction makes sense to the human brain. At least a ledger gives you a comforting illusion of control. If you can earn the favor, you can manage the relationship. If you can manage the relationship, you never have to actually surrender to the overwhelming, uncontrollable love of the giver. You can keep God at a safe, calculable distance. But Paul's definition of Charis reaches into your trembling hands and violently rips the ledger away. It demands that you stop trying to finance your own resurrection. It asks you to do the most terrifying thing a human being can do in a transactional world, to stand completely empty-handed and simply receive. And it does carry the weight of forgiveness. But if you look closer at the cultural dirt under the fingernails of this word, it forces you to accept that your absolute best moral performance is financially useless in this new economy. But to actually drop the ledger, you have to understand the exact mechanics of how a debt was legally destroyed in the ancient world. You have to see what happens when the patron himself decides to close the book permanently. Look at the legal archives of the ancient world. Look at the brittle papyrus receipts pulled from the Egyptian sand. A debt is not erased by good intentions. A debt is erased by a signature. You borrow the silver. You write the amount. You sign the certificate. The lender holds the note. It is a physical document. It is written in dark ink. It carries the full weight of Roman law. If you default, you go to prison. You work the debt off in the damp, lightless mines. Your family is sold on an auction block. The transaction must be completed. The math must balance. When a wealthy patron decides to cancel a debt, he does not just give a verbal pardon. He does not just look the other way. He takes the physical papyrus. He crosses the text out. He drives a sharp iron nail straight through the parchment. He publicly destroys the evidence of what you owe. The ledger is not ignored. The ledger is executed. At what actually happens when a Jewish tent maker decides to weaponize it against the Roman system, you start to see something the religious reading completely misses. This is exactly the image Paul uses in his letter to the Colossians. He says the record of debt stood against humanity. It was legally binding. It was completely accurate. We owed the patron everything, and we had absolutely nothing in our hands to pay it back. Then he tells you what God did with the paperwork. He took it away. He nailed it to the cross. The cosmic ledger is not swept under a rug. It is torn apart by Roman iron. This changes the fundamental nature of the relationship. A transaction requires two people. A gift requires only one. A contract demands mutual performance. A unilateral covenant rests entirely on the promise of the stronger party. Grace is not a negotiation. It is an invasion. God does not meet you halfway. God does not wait for your initial spiritual deposit. He does not check your moral credit score. He acts unilaterally. He steps into the chaotic marketplace. He finds the debtor shivering in the cold. He pays the ultimate price. He destroys the papyrus. The system of human commerce is built on exact balances. You borrow 10 denarii. You pay back 10 denarii. You owe a favor. You return a favor. It is a world of tight fists and closed books. But Charis breaks the math. It introduces an infinite variable into a finite equation. If God operated on the Roman system, he would only save the useful. Grace is not a polite pardon for your mistakes. It is the demolition of the economic system you have been trapped in. He would only rescue the strong. He would only invest in the people who guarantee a high return on his investment. Instead, he buys the broken. He purchases the weak. He redeems the completely useless. The cross is not a down payment on your salvation. It is the final receipt. You cannot add to it. You cannot subtract from it. You can only drop your own currency and accept the transfer. But there is one specific story in the ancient texts that captures this reality better than any theological explanation. It is a story of a crippled boy, an empty table, and a king who refused to keep score. A young man cowers in the dry dust of a barren town called Lodabar. He is crippled in both feet, having been dropped onto hard stone by a terrified nurse when he was just 5 years old. His name is Mephibosheth, the grandson of a fallen king, living his entire life in permanent, suffocating exile. In the ancient Near East, the political math is brutally simple. When a new dynasty takes the throne, you hunt down the previous bloodline. You draw the iron sword. You eliminate every single threat to secure your new power. The ledger of the ancient world always demands blood. The question isn't just what the word means. The question is what the word was designed to destroy. But King David sits on the throne in Jerusalem, and he asks a completely different question. He does not ask his generals for a list of remaining enemies. He asks if there is anyone left of the house of Saul to whom he can show Hesed, the ancient Hebrew, ancestor of Charis, unilateral, unmerited loving kindness. The royal guards arrive in the desolate dirt of Lodabar. They load the crippled man onto a beast of burden and bring him to the towering stone walls of the capital. The heavy wooden doors of the throne room groan on their massive bronze hinges. The sound of Mephibosheth dragging his useless legs echoes sharply across the polished marble floor. He falls heavily on his face. He feels the freezing cold stone against his forehead. He breathes in the thick, overwhelming smell of palace frankincense mixed with his own cold sweat. He calls himself a dead dog. He is waiting for the executioner's blade. He has absolutely nothing to offer the king. He cannot fight in the army. He cannot contribute a single shekel to the royal treasury. And his very existence is a political liability. David looks at the broken man, trembling on the floor. He does not demand a pledge of allegiance. He does not outline a repayment plan. If you do not understand the ancient mechanics of Charis, you will spend your entire life treating God exactly like a Roman patron. He restores every acre of land that belonged to his grandfather. And then, he issues a royal decree that completely shatters the transactional rules of the ancient world. He commands that Mephibosheth will eat at his table forever. The king is not closing a political deal. He is adopting an enemy. The royal table is not a reward for the swift and the strong. It is a refuge for the broken and the unworthy. Mephibosheth has no currency. He has no merit. He only has a seat. And what happens in that throne room is the exact foreshadowing of the scandal Paul would unleash on the Roman Empire. But the implications of this unearned seat stretch far beyond a wooden table in Jerusalem. The poor gathered in the cold Roman dawn and walked away wearing invisible chains. A rabbi stood on a level plain and exposed the brutal math of human leverage. A prisoner sat chained to an imperial guard and hijacked the empire's favorite word. A savior bled on rough-hewn timber and bought the men who hammered the iron. An ancient ledger was dragged to the execution block, and a spike tore the debt to shreds. A crippled exile fell trembling on a marble. You will approach him with your spiritual baskets of figs. You will perform. You will try to pay him back. Floor, and found a permanent seat at the royal table. A modern mind tries frantically to finance its own resurrection, and the creator of the universe simply hands it over. One word. One ruined economy. But here is the part IWs keep coming back to. The woven baskets of figs. The deep, exhausting human instinct to stand outside the bronze doors in the freezing morning, clutching our little offerings. Absolutely terrified that if we do not bring enough to the patron, we will be cast out into the street. We want to pay for our seat because paying feels like control. But your standing with God is not a transaction. It is an adoption. If you are in a season where you are crushed by the weight of your own ledger, where you are bone-tired from trying to maintain a flawless spiritual credit score, where you assume every painful moment in, your life is a penalty for a missed payment, drop the baskets. The transaction is over. The papyrus is destroyed. The table is open. You do not need to finance your own rescue. And may the God who refuses to keep a ledger on your life meet you in your absolute bankruptcy and hand you a grace you could never afford, and you will lie awake wondering if your account is in good standing. Paul was not offering a theological bumper sticker. He was diagnosing a disease of commerce that has infected how humanity views love itself. To feel the weight of this word, and the heavy bronze doors of the inner house are still shut. He is not alone. Dozens of men are shivering in the dawn. You have to realize what it meant to the people who read Paul's letters first. Because for them, Charis was never free. We live in a world of ledgers. We track the hours. We tally the debts. You swipe a piece of cold plastic under fluorescent lights. You watch a digital screen flash. Approved. You hear the sharp ping of a notification telling you a payment went through. Everything is an exchange. Everything has a price tag. Even our most intimate relationships carry a hidden balance sheet. I bought the coffee last time. You buy the coffee this time. I helped you carry heavy cardboard boxes up 3 flights of stairs. You owe me a favor. We are a species obsessed with keeping score. We cannot help it. We measure. We weigh. We balance. And we carry this exact same architecture directly into our theology. When the modern world thinks of grace, it usually imagines a cosmic discount code. You break a rule. You feel a heavy tightness in your chest. You bow your head and recite the right apology. The debt is erased. The ledger is cleared. The deity smiles. We call this grace. We sing acoustic songs about it. We print it on canvas tote bags. We frame it in our living rooms. But this is not grace. This is an accounting trick. We have taken a first-century explosive and turned it into a polite religious concept, clutching small gifts, woven baskets of figs, fresh bread, scrolls of accounting. They are waiting for the master of the house to wake up. The modern, sanitized version of grace asks absolutely nothing of you. It leaves your transactional worldview completely intact. It allows you to keep operating on a strict system of ledgers, just with a deity who occasionally decides to forgive the balance when you say you are sorry. Modern grace is not a revolution. It is a spiritual overdraft protection plan. If Paul simply wanted to say that God forgives you, he had a massive vocabulary at his disposal. He could have used aphesis, the standard Greek legal term for letting a debt go. He could have used eleos, the ancient word for mercy, the feeling of pity you get when you see a beggar shivering in the mud. He could have used paresis, the word for passing over a mistake. But he didn't use those words as his foundation. He bypassed the religious vocabulary entirely. He reached into the dirtiest, most highly regulated corner of the Roman political and economic machine. He grabbed a word that was soaked in the sweat commerce, and manipulation of the empire. He chose Charis. To understand why that specific choice was so dangerous, why it got him beaten with thick wooden rods, why it got him thrown into damp stone dungeons without a trial, and why it eventually cost him his head, you cannot start with a modern dictionary. They are waiting for the morning ritual of the Roman Empire. Every morning, across the Mediterranean, the poor and the indebted gather. You have to leave the safety of modern theology. You have to step back into a world where power is measured entirely in favors. You have to walk into the loud, chaotic marketplace of an ancient city, and you have to watch exactly how a Roman patron buys a human soul. A man sits under house arrest in a rented room. A thick iron chain connects his wrist to a Roman guard. The heavy bronze armor of the soldier clinks as he shifts his weight in the stillness of the afternoon. The prisoner is dictating a letter to a small community of believers living in Ephesus, a shimmering port city built entirely on the brutal mathematics of Roman patronage. He gets to a sentence in chapter 2, verse 8. He is explaining exactly how these people have been rescued from their own spiritual graves. He says, "For by grace you have been saved through faith." The word our English Bibles translate as grace is the Greek noun charis. In the first century, charis is not a religious word you hear inside a sanctuary. It is a commercial and political term you see carved into the marble pillars of the town square. It is the grease that keeps the Roman economic engine running. When an elite patrician provides grain during a famine or funds the construction of a public bathhouse, the citizens owe him charis. They owe him honor, public praise, and unwavering political obedience. At the homes of the wealthy, the patron emerges, sits on a carved wooden chair, and distributes favors. A bag of grain. It is a closed loop of absolute obligation. The gift is never free. The patron only invests in clients who have the social capacity to pay him back. You give the favor. You secure the loyalty. You increase your power. The culture is so completely steeped in this transactional math that Jesus directly references it. In Luke chapter 6, he is standing on a level place, teaching a crowd, and he asks them, "If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you?" But if you look at the original language, the word translated as credit is charis. Jesus is exposing the Roman system in real time. He is literally asking, what charis is that? What patron-client favor have you actually achieved if you only trade with people who can benefit your own status? Rome built an empire on the idea that charis must be earned, managed, and eventually repaid in blood or loyalty. Paul looks at this transactional nightmare, picks up his pen, and completely redefines the term. He does not invent a new word. He hijacks the old one. He takes the language of elite Roman privilege and attaches it to the dead, the broken, the rebels, and the enemies of God. He describes an unmerited favor given to people who have absolutely no spiritual capital, no moral currency, and no ability whatsoever to pay the patron back. Charis is not a cosmic loan you spend your life trying to repay. It is a unilateral rescue that shatters the entire economy of human striving. But to pull off this linguistic hijacking, Paul has to do something completely unthinkable: a legal defense, a loan to keep a shop open. These are not gifts. They are invisible chains. In the Greco-Roman world, to the ancient mind, he has to take the role of the ultimate Roman patron and assign it to a crucified Jewish rabbi. The system was flawless. The system was predictable. You give to get. You invest to profit. You bless the worthy. You ignore the weak. This is how empires are built. This is how human power is maintained. You find someone with potential. You hand them a heavy bag of silver. You demand their absolute allegiance. The ledger balances. The transaction is clean. Paul takes a sledgehammer to the ledger. He strips Charis of its conditions. He removes the prerequisite of worth. He destroys the demand for repayment. He takes a word soaked in the sweat of Roman commerce and washes it in the blood of a crucifixion. Imagine hearing this as a first-century citizen. You have spent your entire life calculating debts. You wake up every morning trying to prove your worth. to the men who hold the mortgage on your life. You carve tallies into wax tablets. You live in a constant, suffocating anxiety of owing the wrong man a favor. Then a letter arrives. It speaks of a king who gives his wealth to beggars, a king who cancels the debt of rebels, a patron who dies for his clients. Look at how Paul wields this weapon in his letter. A favor is a binding social contract. If the patron gives you bread, you give him your vote, your public praise, to the Romans. Romans chapter 11, verse 6. He is explaining the geometry of this new reality. He writes, "But if it is by grace, it is no longer on the basis of works. Otherwise, grace would no longer be grace." He creates a mathematical impossibility for the ancient mind, a gift that cannot be earned, a favor that violently rejects repayment, a rescue that requires absolutely zero spiritual capital. If you try to pay it back, you destroy the gift. If you try to earn it, you insult the giver. Grace is not a transaction between a patron and a client. It is a rebellion against the ledger itself. If the idea of a God who refuses to keep a ledger is stirring up a tension you have never felt before, you are exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe, because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So Paul takes this explosive new definition and aims it at the most sacred human assumption. He aims it at the idea of who actually deserves to be at the table. The ancient mind believed the gods only loved the beautiful. They only favored the strong. They only blessed the moral. To give a royal favor to a criminal was not just foolish, and your absolute loyalty. You belong to him. This system of reciprocal favor holds the entire ancient world together. It was deeply shameful. But the detail that changes everything is who Paul says this Charis is actually for. Picture the hill of Golgotha. The sky turns to ash at midday. A man hangs suspended on rough-hewn timber, his lungs fighting for a single, agonizing breath of air. Below him, the recipients of his favor are not bowing in reverence. They are not holding woven baskets of morning offerings. They are holding iron spears. They are spitting into the dry dust. They are laughing at his pain. In the Roman system, a patron crushes his enemies. In this new kingdom, the patron bleeds for them. Years later, Paul stares at the memory of this cross and writes, Romans chapter 5, verse 8. He says, "But God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us." This is the scandal of the unworthy. In the Greco-Roman world, the patron-client relationship is a fortress of mutual advantage. If you betray the patron, you do not receive Charis. You receive the sword. You are dragged into the street. You are sold into the damp, lightless belly of a Roman galley ship, to pull heavy wooden oars until your heart finally gives out. You do not get a gift. You get erased. It has a name. In Latin, it is called gratia. In Greek, it is called charis. Most people today assume that when the ancient gods operate the exact same way, they demand perfection before they offer blessing. You must wash your hands in the brass basin. You must bring the flawless animal. You must recite the incantation without a single stutter. If you fail, the gods turn their faces away. But this Charis bypasses the altar of human perfection entirely. It bypasses the strong. It bypasses the beautiful. It bypasses the morally put together. It goes down into the dirt of the streets. It reaches into the damp darkness of the prison cell. It finds the rebel, the traitor, and the failure. Grace is not a reward for the righteous. It is a resurrection for the dead. Look at the rhythm of the cross. The favor is poured out on the ones actively tearing down the patron's house. He gives the gift to the ones holding the hammer. He gives the gift to the ones weaving the sharp thorns. He gives the gift to the ones who will take the rescue and still walk away. This breaks the ancient mind. It is deeply offensive to the Greeks. It is absolute foolishness. Because if favor is unmerited, then human power means nothing. If favor is unmerited, then your flawless moral resume is completely worthless. You cannot buy your way into the patron's good graces.